DC Comics are weird. Now that might seem like a fairly obvious comment about a world where every billionaire's favourite pastime is dressing up in spandex and punching the mentally ill, but these are stories so bizarre, it's a struggle to comprehend how an actual fellow human being ever looked at the plot outline and thought, yeah, that's fine. Looking back at their history, there were times when DC just flat out didn't care about making sense. There were plots that didn't adhere to any sort of logic, superhumans forced to work menial jobs, and a lot of weird superhero kinkiness, just so much superhero kinkiness. I'm Ben from What Culture, and here are 10 times DC Comics lost their damn minds. Number 10. The Rise of Arsenal. The absolute pinnacle of DC trying very hard to be dark and moody was Justice League Cry for Justice and its sequel, The Rise of Arsenal. Roy Harper had been on a long, hard road to get from Green Arrow's sidekick Speedy to his identity at the time of Red Arrow. However, that all came crashing down after his daughter was killed by a bomb. While Cry for Justice was a puerile attempt at proving comics aren't just for kids, Rise of Arsenal was so dark, it came across as a parody of itself. Roy fell back into heroin addiction, and after taking time out to let us know that all the stress of everything made him impotent, we get one of the most unintentionally hilarious comic panels ever made. Arsenal hires a kite, beats up a group of drug dealers to protect a dead cat that he thinks is his daughter. Oh dear. Number 9. Wonder Woman sells tacos. Diana Prince has worked numerous jobs over the years, but her weirdest has got to be the time she worked in fast food. After the War of the Gods, Diana found herself in a bit of a pickle. She'd been cast out of Themyscira, and while she had died and come back to life, the computer at the Justice League thought she was still dead and refused to pay her, because apparently they have a wage, which is something I've never really considered before. With no other way to get money and wanting to connect with more ordinary people, she got a job. Apparently, though, the 90s DC economy was awful, since the only job somebody with the powers of an actual god could get was working at Taco Whiz. Number 8. Brother Power the Geek. Brother Power was an attempt to capitalize on the hippie subculture of the 1960s. Now you're probably expecting him to be some sort of super-powered flower child, but no, he's a shop mannequin brought to life by a bolt of lightning who dressed up in discarded hippie clothes and was kidnapped by the psychedelic circus. How did he come alive, you might ask? Was it a magic lightning bolt from Zeus? Nope. He just came alive. Maybe a later story would have helped elaborate more on his origin, but Brother Power the Geek was cancelled after 2 issues because the man didn't like his style. Number 7. Superman and Batman watch alien worm sex. One of the saddest casualties of the move towards more serious comics is the loss of the unintentionally amazing World's Finest series of comics. It was a constant parade of Batman and Superman cementing themselves as the greatest bromance in comics by engaging in whatever wacky adventure they felt like going on that week. The absolute high point is issue 289. You know things are going to get good when the issue basically starts with Superman inviting Batman to the Fortress of Solitude for a sleepover, and things only get better / worse from there. The slumber party of justice is interrupted by an invasion of a species of worm-like aliens. At first it looks like Superman and Batman are going to have to once again battle through an alien menace bent on destroying the Earth, but then something else happens. It turns out the alien worms were actually drawn to our planet by Batman and Superman's raw emotion from being honest with each other, and they feed off that emotion to mate. Bruce and Clark then just stand there and watch as tentacles start going into holes and shed a single manly tear as, having passed on their DNA, the aliens die. Number 6. The Flash gets fat. DC Comics in the 60s were especially weird. In Flash number 115, Gorilla Grodd invents a ray that causes his nemesis to absorb all the moisture in the air around him, causing him to become incredibly fat under the special cosmic rules of, well, none of us know enough about science to say that definitely wouldn't happen. After a few pages of having people laugh at the fat man trying to run, things get weirder when Barry loses his memory and is turned into a sideshow freak by some random dick. Flash eventually goes into a dehydration room and is able to shed his tons of fun before going on to save the day. Number 5. All-Star Batman and Robin. Set in the same universe as Year One and Dark Knight Returns, All-Star is Frank Miller's take on Batman's first encounter and training of Dick Grayson. Despite being written by the man who practically defined the modern-day Batman, it reads like it was written by someone who was only told about the Dark Knight by a drunken friend. The whole series is a jumble of stupidity, gratuitous violence, and weird misogyny. Moments like Batman and Black Canary having sex next to a pile of burning bodies and the infamous "I'm the goddamn Batman line suggests this series is meant as a parody. It goes to such extreme lengths to portray Batman as an over-the-top psychopath that it becomes indistinguishable from just a really badly written Batman comic. Number 4. Superman at Earth's End. The DC Elseworlds line reimagined its top heroes in a variety of new scenarios, frequently telling tales of familiar heroes thrown into different time periods or creating entirely new continuities, but Superman at Earth's End is something else. The story takes place in a dystopian future where Earth has been overrun by an army of genetically altered mutants called the DNA Dictators. An elderly and greatly weakened Superman joins an army of rebels to take down the leaders of the DNA Dictators, who are twin clones of Adolf Hitler. It all feels very weird, and at one point tries to throw in an anti-gun message after a depowered Superman is fatally wounded by a machine gun, despite also having a finale in which he saves the day by killing the Hitlers with a gigantic machine gun. What? Number 3. Supergirl's horse is in love with her. One of the most popular trends in the 60s was for superheroes to have animal sidekicks. Comet the Super Horse was an interesting one. His real name was Byron, and he was actually a centaur from ancient Greece. After helping her out, the witch Circe gave him a potion to turn him fully human, but like a plot from the weirdest sitcom ever, she gave him the wrong potion and he was turned into an immortal horse instead. A horse who is in love with Supergirl. Things start creepily enough, with Comet using his telepathy to make Supergirl constantly daydream about having a horse so that she'll go out and find him. Oh, and Comet had also been watching her since she was a child, which is not at all disturbing. Somehow, though, the story only got weirder. Comet gained the ability to turn into a human every time a comet passed over Earth. He then repeatedly tried to seduce Supergirl whilst keeping his horse identity a secret. Number 2. Batman Odyssey. Odyssey is framed as a story being told to an unknown party by Batman himself. Batman, in this case, meaning a mostly naked Bruce Wayne, and story being a long and rambling collection of mostly unconnected scenes. We jump from Batman climbing up the side of a train like a bat while describing how he thought at the time he looked like a bat, to Batman and Robin philosophizing about guns while fighting Man-Bat. Then it turns out that Batman on the train is actually a flashback within a flashback that Batman had as he was lying injured from a gunshot, and it just keeps going on and on like that. A series of bizarre and meandering events buried underneath a mountain of exposition and full of dialogue that doesn't sound like it should be spoken by a human being, much less the Dark Knight. Number 1. Superman stars in porn. Apart from the Man of Steel, one of Darkseid's greatest foes is Mr. Miracle. Scott-free is a member of the New Gods who was imprisoned on Apokolips. Using his skills as the universe's greatest escape artist, and with the help of his future wife Big Barda, he was able to escape. That brings us to Action Comics number 592. In it, Scott and Barda are on Earth when Barda runs into Sleaze, an exile from Apokolips. Sleaze uses his powers to corrupt Barda and later Superman as well, making them both his slaves. When Mr. Miracle returns home, he finds Darkseid waiting for him. Darkseid tells him what's happened to Barda and reveals it's all part of his most sinister plan yet, to film Superman and Big Barda having some grown-up fun and make Scott watch it. This is the actual plot to a real comic. After dashing around Metropolis, Mr. Miracle is able to find the film studio and bursts in just before Superman can do his thing. Sleaze then dies in an explosion, and the Man of Steel has to try and awkwardly explain the whole situation. Oh, what wholesome fun this is. And that's our list. Make sure you subscribe to the What Culture Comics channel for more lists like this, and don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. I'm Ben from What Culture, and thanks for watching.